you ready to party? 'Cause it's party time. Well, you remember the Boston Tea Party? Over 100 members of the Sons of Liberty, led by Samuel Adams and Paul Revere, they dressed up like Iroquois Mohawk in the night and dumped 90,000 pounds, that's 45 tons of tea, into Boston Harbor. 342 chests of tea, each one weighed about 400 pounds. So this isn't how it looked. That's more like it. Anyway, in today's money, we're talking over $1 million worth of tea. Ouch. George Washington condemned the event, saying those responsible were mad. That's mad as in cray-cray. Ben Franklin offered to pay for the tea, but the British didn't want some guy from Pennsylvania to pay for the crimes of Bostonians. And the fact that the Sons of Liberty swept the ship clean and replaced the lock they had broken, that didn't make it all good either. Nice try, though. Boston had to be punished. Punished, that is, until someone claimed responsibility, steps up and pays up for the dumping of all that tea. Soon after, British Parliament passed the Coercive Acts, a series of 4 laws. One of them aimed directly at punishing Boston for their little tea party. The Boston Port Act shut down Boston Harbor. It closed down Boston Harbor. No ships were allowed to leave Boston. No ships were allowed into Boston. This will be Patriot Town no longer. The Patriots of Boston said these acts must not be tolerated and called the Coercive Acts the Intolerable Acts. No matter what they called them, the Boston Port Act was a crushing blow to Boston businesses, as merchants could no longer import goods to sell and couldn't export goods like their precious rum. The flow of money had been stopped cold, not to mention the flow of food. Remember that rocky New England soil. As Boston Harbor set closed, some Bostonians began to starve. Why all of this trouble over tea, you ask? Well, the Sons of Liberty dumped that tea to protest the Tea Act. The Tea Act wasn't really an attempt by Parliament to raise revenue, nor was it even a tax on tea at all. Well, what did it do? It lowered the price of tea, but said that colonists could only buy tea from the failing British East India Tea Company. The British East India Tea Company was going out of business, losing dollars by the day, going bankrupt. So the British government decided to help it out by forcing colonists to buy their tea, not tea from the French tea companies, and not tea from Spain's tea companies, and certainly not tea from the beloved Dutch tea company, but from the British East India Company, which actually got its tea from China. The Patriots didn't like Britain forcing them to do anything at all, especially without any representation in Parliament. So I guess that made it party time, because after the 1773 Tea Party, a second Boston Tea Party took place in March of 1774, when around 60 Bostonians boarded the ship called the Fortune and dumped nearly 30 chests of tea into Boston Harbor. And that encouraged other tea dumping demonstrations as well, Maryland, in New York, and South Carolina. But no party could last forever. After the Boston Port Act was passed, Boston's patriot movement was stuck like Chuck. British ships blocked the harbor. British soldiers patrolled the streets. Many patriot leaders fled Boston altogether. To help with Boston's food shortage caused by the closing of Boston Harbor, the other colonies began to send food to help out. For the first time since all this trouble had begun between the colonies and the mother country, the colonies started to show signs of joining together in unity. Capitalizing on this mood of togetherness, leaders in the colonies decided to huddle up, come together, and have a meeting. 12 colonies decided to send delegates or representatives to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for a top-secret meeting called the First Continental Congress. Oh, wait, did I say 12? 12 colonies? I thought there were 13 British colonies. I wonder what colony did not send delegates. Anyone happen to know? Anyone? Anyone? That's right, good job. Georgia did not participate in the First Continental Congress. And a couple things about that name. One, it did not involve the entire continent of North America, so calling it a Congress for all of the continent or Continental Congress may have been a little bit of a stretch. I mean, gee willikers, it wasn't even all 13 colonies. And two, if it's called the First Continental Congress, there must have been, spoiler alert, more Continental Congresses. The reason for this Continental Congress was first to discuss war. How could they do such a thing? Please, don't start that again. The delegates met to discuss problems with Great Britain and send a list of grievances or complaints to King George III. They agreed that if they did not get a good enough response from the king, that they would have war. How could they do such a thing? Hey, not in this video. They agreed that they would meet again. With Boston's bad behavior finally put in check by Big Momma, with Boston Harbor being closed, soldiers marching the streets, Patriot leaders on the run, it was time for Great Britain to round up two of the biggest Patriot leaders. One with the biggest mouth, the other with the deepest pockets. None other than Samuel Adams and the richest man in New England, John Hancock. Word on the street was they were hiding out in a town outside of Boston called Lexington. The British regulars were about to get their move on. The plan was to arrest Sam Adams and John Hancock, then head over to another town called Concord, where rumor had it the Patriots were storing weapons in a barn. Now, it's one thing to mouth off about how the British government is acting, but it's another thing to talk trash and store weapons at the same time. The British wouldn't stand for that. A force of 700 regular soldiers began the 30-mile march to Lexington. Would the town of Lexington be caught with their pants down? Would the town of Lexington be caught off guard? Or would they smell trouble a-coming their way?